Okay, so for the last few days, I've been reading up on George Santos. Now, for those of you who don't know who George Santos is, he's a bit of a controversial figure at the moment in US politics, and not so much for his policies or his beliefs, but because he's made a number of dubious or downright false claims about his biography, his work history, his criminal record, his financial status, his religion, his ethnicity. There is so much to get through, I don't know where to start. It's mental. But after a few days of reading up on him and watching interviews with him, my verdict is finally in and I'm ready to analyse George Santos in this video. Oh, you're going to analyse his personality a little bit like Dr. Todd Grande?
George Santos. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing about this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this.
No, nothing like Dr. Todd Grande. As I said, my verdict is in. I will be diagnosing George Santos. There will be no splinters in my arse after this video. So anyway, all you need to know as we get into this video is that George Santos is a 34-year-old US congressman who assumed office just 6 weeks ago on January 3rd, 2023. And all of these allegations are coming out every day. It seems like there's a new scandal with this guy. And so what I'm going to do in today's video is take a look at a couple of interviews he's done recently in the last month or so, trying to clear his name. I'm going to look at what he says in those interviews and dismantle him. I mean, objectively analyze everything.
You said that you had exaggerated your resume a little bit, and I'm wondering what caused you to even feel the need to exaggerate who you are on paper?
We'll start it this way. Look, I didn't outright lie about my work experience.
Okay, let's go. I'm gonna try and stay as calm as possible because obviously a lot of you watching this video don't know what a narcissistic prick this guy is yet. But he's so narcissistic that it's hard to bear. The fact that he's sitting there in an interview saying he didn't outright lie about his work experience. Let's go. Were you or were you not lying, George Santos, when you claimed that you had 4 employees who died in the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando? Is that lying about your work experience? Claiming to have employees that you didn't have, who were shot to death? Maybe we'll let that one slide, because it's not technically lying about your work experience, what you've experienced in the workplace. It just makes you a morally bankrupt piece of shit. So let's focus purely on what you've said about your work experience. You know, like when you said that you'd worked on Wall Street for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, but the departments that you claimed you worked in were dissolved while you were still in high school. Is that outright lying? Did you misremember? Representatives of those companies say they have no record of you having worked there, ever. How would you define outright lying? Were you lying, George Santos, when you claimed to have appeared on Hannah Montana? I'm not joking. This lunatic, he's 34 years old and Jesus Christ, all the things he's claimed to have done in so few years. A Wikipedia bio for a username Anthony DeVolder, that's one of his aliases. Nothing suspicious about that, a person who goes by several names. Wikipedia bio for a user named Anthony DeVolder claims that following a successful drag career, yes, he was a drag queen, though initially he said he wasn't a drag queen and it was a lie, then photos came out and he said, yeah, I love being a drag queen, it's great. We'll get to that later. But in this Wikipedia bio, it says that he, George Santos, landed roles on Disney Channel shows such as Hannah Montana and Sweet Life for Zack and Cody. It then says he landed a role in a movie called The Invasion starring Uma Thurman, despite the fact that Uma Thurman has never appeared in a film called The Invasion. Were you outright lying, George Santos, about your work experience when you claimed to have been a Broadway producer? During his 2022 congressional bid, Santos claimed to some donors that he had helped produce Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, a 2011 rock musical revisiting the plot of the first 2 movies starring Tobey Maguire. How delusional can you be? How does that help your congressional bid? You produced Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark? That's my favourite rock musical. He's got my vote. I'm going to donate more to your campaign, god damn it. The real producers of that play say that George Santos was involved in absolutely nothing. He was in no way involved in Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, the rock musical. But what's even more amazing about it is this play was a massive flop. It was delayed, it lost loads and loads of money, resulted in injuries to a load of actors. It seems like narcissists do this quite a lot. It seems like this to me, right? I'm no Dr. Todd Grande, but I can see what they do here. He talks about working for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup in departments that have been closed down years ago. So he sort of thinks, well, no one's really sure what happened there. It's all closed and moved on. I can just say I worked there. I can claim to have worked on this because the real producers aren't going to talk to anyone. They'll be happy to see that someone else is claiming they produced it rather than them. Well, then the real people come out, the people who know come out and say it, and you can almost see into his mind. He's going, well, are we really going to take their word for it? I mean, look at all the actors that got injured. But you're saying you produced it, well, are we really going to take their word? The department closed down while you were in high school. Did it? I mean, do you really know that? I mean, were you there? I was there. They say you weren't there. They don't. Nah. It's not really clear, is it? You just see this thing happening all the time. They make all these ridiculous claims. They're really vague about the details, but because they're narcissistic and they want to get high up in society, they want everybody's praise and they want everybody's attention. When they get to the top, they get called out on their bullshit, but they can't see themselves. They can't see the lies that they're telling. They probably believe that they should have produced Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, that they should have worked for Goldman Sachs, that they should be worth $100 million, but they're not. But they keep saying that they are because they're just blind to themselves. It's just insane.
Actually, I'm fairly well-rounded in the financial markets and capital markets. I've been doing it for a very long time.
Red flag right there. All narcissists say they've been doing things for a very long time. They're never very specific about when they started and when they finished. He's 34. He has not been doing anything for a very long time because he's 34. And the last 2 years of his life, he's been trying to get into Congress. And you'll see, well, I'm not even going to play it now because there's more things to move on to. This is only the tip of the iceberg of all of his lies. We're going to move on from his work experience, but basically he says here that around 2011, 2012, he worked for 6, 7, possibly 8 months in customer service before getting into the financial markets, which he's really well rounded in because he's been doing it for such a long time, 8 years apparently, according to him. Of course, in 2011, 2012, he was working in customer service. Hang on a second. I thought you were producing Spider-Man on Broadway. I thought you were acting as a drag queen in Hannah Montana. What'll it be?
I'm not ashamed of it, Sky. But the moment I put that on a resume and I put it out there, elitists like the New York Times like to call blue collar jobs like that odd jobs because, it just doesn't fit their bourgeoisie style lifestyle. So it's those expectations and those negative connotations from elitist organizations such as the New York Times that lead people like me, who I'm very comfortable in saying I come from poverty. I come from a family of absolute nothing, and I've worked really hard to get where I am today. And the reality is yes, I omitted past employment history that was irrelevant to the role, although one can argue customer service is pretty important for members of Congress, but I guess they just don't see it that way.
Right, I really want to get past the lies about his work experience because there's so much more egregious, disgusting shit that he's lied about. But let's just point that out one more time. He's constantly playing the victim. So the reason he lied on his resume, the reason he didn't say that in 2011, 2012 he was working in customer service, rather he was working in the 2010s, he was working for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup. In 2011 he was producing Broadway musicals, right? The reason he said that is because the New York Times, they don't like blue collar people. They're evil. They're elitists. How fucking stupid do you have to be to believe him? He's a fraud. And if that hasn't convinced you, well, here's more stuff.
And the controversy about your ancestors in the Holocaust. How did that become such a story in these different Jewish publications, whether they were in the Holocaust or they weren't in the Holocaust? And do I wish you a happy Hanukkah or a Merry Christmas?
Oh, yeah. He claims to be a descendant of Holocaust survivors. And guess what? He isn't.
So as I've said many times, and I think you've heard me say this, I always joke, I'm Catholic, but I'm also Jewish. Ish, as in ish.
Oh, so you didn't say you were Jewish, you said you were Jewish, did you, when you were talking on your campaign trail to Jewish and pro-Israel leaders, and you said that you were a proud American Jew. Did you then do some air quotes and go Jewish to the pro-Israel people? Or did you leave that air quotation out? Because, of course, you want to garner their support. You want to win their votes, not massively offend them by pretending to be something that you're not to further your political career.
It would appear as though George believes that if he separates two syllables of a word with a pause, he changes the meaning of the word. This strategy is both cartoonish and cartoon-ish.
Got him! Got him!
And I've made that joke because growing up, I grew up fully aware that my grandparents were Jewish, came from a Jewish family, and they were refugees to Brazil. And that was always the story I grew up with, and I've always known it very well. And I've told it the way it was told to me. Now, if it just strikes me so odd that people are rushing to disinherit me from being Jewish, or for even allowing to care for Israel and Judaism.
It's amazing. You are a member of Congress, right? You're a politician. Of course, people are going to try and dig up your past a little bit, right? But here's the problem, right? When you're a nobody, you can go around telling them that your Brazilian family have Jewish heritage and no one can really question it because no one can really be asked to find out if that's true or not. When you're a member of Congress and you claim that your maternal grandparents fled Soviet Ukraine, then Nazi-occupied Germany to Brazil, and it turns out they were both born and raised in Brazil, then you're going to have a problem. Well, this video's getting kind of long, so I don't know if you want me to do a deeper dive into this, but I'm going to just read a few more things that he has apparently done. In the interview here, I'm not going to show the clips, but basically he claims to have set up a charity that operated between 2013 and 2018, where he saved the lives of 2,500 cats and dogs, but there are no social media accounts for that charity. There's no IRS records for that charity. There's no evidence of the charity being registered in New York or New Jersey, where he says he operated from. And that, there doesn't seem to be any evidence that ever existed, but he continues to claim that he had this charity for dogs. And then there's a weird pattern about dogs. He's alleged to have swindled a disabled vet whose dog was dying. So this man who needed surgery, $3,000 surgery for his dog. He was a vet, a war veteran living in a tent in New Jersey. Anthony DeVolder, that was the alias George Santos was going under at the time, set up a GoFundMe for this disabled vet whose dog was dying. It's not funny. He raised the $3,000 necessary and then kept the money for himself. This was back in 2016, I guess. He hadn't done quite well enough that year in Citigroup or Goldman Sachs, and he needed those $3,000 for something, I don't know what. He's denied the story, but the FBI are apparently investigating that still. Then there's another thing with dogs. He wrote 9 false checks to 8 different dog breeders. The checks bounced. He was charged with theft. He got off. Apparently it was expunged from the record because he claimed that his checkbook was stolen and, whatever. We're not really sure what happened there, but there does seem to be a pattern of him committing crimes related with dogs. And then there are some really weird things. Okay, so his personal life. He's now come out as gay, but he was married between 2012 and 2019. And then a friend of his from when he was living in the early 2000s in Rio de Janeiro came out and said he was competing to become Miss Gay Rio de Janeiro back in 2005 when he would have been 17. And he was living as an openly gay drag queen in Brazil. And then fast forward to 2012, 7 years later, and he's marrying a woman. And in 2014... for 5 years before he got divorced in 2019, in 2014, he invited all of his friends on Facebook to his engagement party with his then boyfriend, who, which never materialized because his boyfriend said no to the proposal. So there's this very clear, I don't know what's going on there. Did he think that being gay would damage his political aspirations or something? I don't know. God knows. So there's all that weird stuff about his personal life. Here's a particularly disgusting thing that he did. He wrote on Twitter in 2021 that the September 11th attacks claimed his mother's life. He said that it was the 5th anniversary of his mother's passing, right? This was in 2021, which is strange because in the interview I was just watching there, he said it was the 6th anniversary in 2022. Yeah, that's right. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's just my bad maths. Yeah, okay, so he said it was the 5th anniversary of her dying in 2021, so she would have died in 2016, right? So kind of 15 years after the attacks happened. But then he went on to say that on his campaign website that she was in the office tower on September 11th, and that she passed away a few years later with when she lost a battle to cancer. Now, a lot of people from inhaling the dust and from the debris of the wreckage that day did have long-lasting health side effects. 15 years later, I'm not sure that would be related to the September 11th attacks. Could be, possibly. The problem is genealogists have looked up his mother's whereabouts at the time of the September 11th attacks, and he claims she was working in the Southern Tower, right? Thing is, no, she wasn't. Her only registered job in the US at any time shows her working at an imports business in Queens that folded in 1994. He's said anecdotally that she worked as a cleaner, I think, at times, but he also claimed that she worked as a finance executive in 2001, and she was working in the Southern Tower when the attacks happened. But 2 genealogists found documents showing that his mother was in Brazil in September 2001. And in 2003, Fatima de Volder, that's his mother, applied for a visa to enter the USA. In the document, she wrote that she had not been in the country since 1999. Now, what's going on? What the fuck? First of all, he tried to get away with saying she died in the September 11th attacks. Then he said, well, she died a few years later. Then it turns out it was 15 years later, and it's because of the side effects. Then it turns out she wasn't even in the USA. I don't know, maybe it just impacted her so much from Brazil, watching what happened in New York, you know. I get the feeling I'm going to be making more videos about our friend George Santos in the coming days and weeks. But let me know if there's anything specifically you want me to look at in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, like, share, subscribe, all the rest of it. Leave your thoughts in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.